If you could pick a different job on a film set for a day, which job would you choose? It's got to be a different job from what we normally do. So for you, you can't direct or be the cinematographer.
Okay. I think I might be the dolly grip. I feel like it's you get to like play with toys. You're right there in the mix on things. It's still intuitive and you get to, use some instinct in accordance with like what the actor is doing. And it's just, it's fun. It's good people and toys.
That's great. I think I would do craft service.
That's
Yeah, I think I'll do craft service, and I'll do the coffee.
You are an excellent barista. I would love, love any craft service with you behind the coffee machine.
You're listening to PROX.
Talk about the fire inside. Talk about how you got it and how you made this transition and what it was like.
Well, I've been reading things for a long time, looking for something that felt necessary. I mean, I can't think of a better term for it. Like, I just, as much as I love to be entertained, I do think, we have a responsibility to take this skill set that we have and use it for good. And that we have an opportunity to use filmmaking to kind of say something. And so when I read Barry's script, he had always wanted a woman to direct. He, I think, had me in mind. I don't know at what point, but they brought it to me and it just made sense.
You're listening to In Proximity. This is the last episode of our second season. Please keep following the show on your favorite podcast app and on social media. We're at Proximity Media. We hope to be back in your feeds very soon. Now, for our season finale, we have director and cinematographer Rachel Morrison. She's the first woman to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Cinematography for her work on MUDBOUND. As the DP on Black Panther, she's the first woman to lens a Marvel superhero film. In television, she's directed episodes of The Morning Show, Impeachment: American Crime Story, and The Mandalorian. Her feature directorial debut, The Fire Inside, is coming to theaters this Christmas. The screenplay is written by Barry Jenkins, based on the true story of Claressa T-Rex Shields, the first American woman to win Olympic gold in boxing. The Fire Inside premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival this past September to a standing ovation and rave reviews. Rachel spoke with our founder, Ryan Coogler, just a few weeks before the premiere. She was on her patio in Los Angeles, and Ryan was at his home in the Bay, so you might hear some leaf blowers in the background. On this episode, they talk about their collaborations on Fruitvale Station and Black Panther, and deep dive into Rachel's career journey, from photography, film school, and reality TV, to cinematography and directing.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Ryan Coogler on In Proximity. We're here with Rachel Morrison, who is a director who just finished up her directorial debut, The Fire Inside. Super excited to talk with her because I first met Rachel as a cinematographer, and I got to work with her on my debut feature film, Fruitvale Station. And we became very close friends and collaborators. We had a chance to work together again on Black Panther. She was a cinematographer on that. And Rachel has been able to forged an incredible career, both as a cinematographer and as a filmmaker, both in film and in television. And I've been front row watching it unfold, the past decade and some change, and just really happy to have her here. Rachel, what's up?
What's up? I'm really happy to be here. It's like always so nice to see your face. Also, it's really strange to hear you refer to me as a director. It's still strange, but it's like, I mean, I guess partly I need to learn how to just embody that, but also I don't stop being a cinematographer. I was like waiting for you to say director and cinematographer, and you just said director, and I was like, wait, but I'm still a DP.
Yeah.
I'll always be a DP.
Yeah, it might be strange for you to hear, but it's not at all strange for me to say. I always knew it was going to happen for you, and just proud of you, knowing everything that it took for you to get here with this movie. So I'm excited to talk about it. But first, we're going to jump into our Get Real segment.
All right.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this is the first question. If you could pick a different job on a film set for a day, which job would you choose?
Ooh.
It's got to be a different job from what we normally do. So for you, you can't direct or be the cinematographer.
Okay. I think I might be the dolly grip. When you shoot studio mode and you're not handheld, the camera sits on a dolly and the dolly grip pushes the dolly and the camera along the track and can basically raise and lower and push the camera from left to right and creates a path for the camera to track the action of the actor. You're right there in the mix on things. It's still intuitive and you get to, use some instinct in accordance with like what the actor is doing. And it's just, it's fun. It's good people and toys.
It's a wild ass job.
It really is. It's like you get to play with big toys.
That's great. I think I would do craft service.
That's a good answer.
I think I'll do craft service and I'll do the coffee.
You are an excellent barista. I would love, love any craft service with you behind the coffee machine. You're hired.
What's the next one? Oh, wow. Can you share the most memorable behind the scenes photo you've taken on your phone? Yeah, I guess I got to pull my phone out.
That's like thousands and thousands and thousands of BTS photos to go through in my mind in a second.
Yeah, I'm looking. I think it's probably, for me, it's not a photo. It's a video. Yeah, it's a video. And it's from when we were doing pickups or reshoots or additional photography. It's got all these different names to it. But it would be from Panther.
You still have it all on your phone now?
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, I hope I do.
This is a really hard question.
It is, man. Oh, I see it. Yeah, this video is from October 25th. So the last scene we did in Panther, we shot the entire scene in additional photography. But it was at a location that we shot the very first day of photography, where kids are playing basketball. In the script, it's in Oakland. In the movie, we shot the kids in Atlanta. And it was like a block away from where Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is buried. And we wrote a new scene for when T'Challa and Shuri go back to this place where, spoiler alert, where their father killed their uncle. And we shot a new basketball game with new kids. And T'Challa and Shuri kind of walk up. And I got a video of Chadwick, Letitia, and my little brother Keenan playing basketball with the kids that we cast. I actually didn't think much of it when I shot it. But after Chad passed away, I was going back through stuff and I found this video. And it's just pretty incredible video, man. Like, you just seeing these kids and you kind of get a feel for how humble Chad was. You know what I mean? And Chad could play, man. So he was just knocking down these jumpers quietly, you know what I mean? And the kids was getting rebounds for him. It just a reminder of how, like, just how youthful he is and also like our capacity to take things for granted. You know what I'm saying?
That's really beautiful. I remember that well. I think I'm too overwhelmed to come up with a single instance, but I think along those lines, for me, it's the intersection between like work and life, or like family and work. So I have vivid memories of, I think 2 days before I gave birth, like doing a shoot that pregnant, 9 months pregnant, like the moments when my kids visited set and they got to meet Mandalorian, or, there's a picture of him with baby Grogu.
Mandalorian, what were you doing on that? You were doing cinematography?
No, I directed an episode.
Oh, okay. I was just checking.
God, Coog. Oh, man.
We could just start off on how we met. It would have been in 2012, right? So 12 years ago.
Crazy.
Just over 12 years ago. Because we shot that movie in the summer. We probably would have met like February or March, right? Of 2012.
That sounds right, yeah.
And I was gearing up to shoot, and meeting with people for different roles. And Elise McKinney works at the Sundance Labs. And I had just gone through the screenwriting lab with them in 2012. I was set up with Nina Yang, Bon Jovi, and Forrest Whitaker at Significant to shoot. And it was, it was time to find a crew. And I was leaning on Sundance for resources and recommendations. And Elise said, "Hey, you should meet with Rachel Morrison." And I think we met. We jumped on a Skype, I think.
Yeah, it was way before Zoom was Skype. I thank Elise for, for introducing me to the brother that I always wanted and never had, like from a conversation that we had, a year before that, where she had basically asked me to, describe the movie I wanted to be making. And I think I'd inadvertently described Fruitvale.
That's crazy.
And she clocked it. And a year later, when you were looking for a DP, and I think you probably said you wanted somebody who had a background in documentary, which I had. She put those pieces together.
Yeah, she described you like y'all spoke the day before. That's funny. I don't know if I ever knew that it was a conversation from that far before. And then what I did was I went to go see The Sound of My Voice. It was playing at a theater in the city, and I watched it. And I knew you had shot that film on a SLR, right, on a DSLR. And I known that going into it. I thought your work was just beautiful. I remember some of those shots. Was there a shot, Rach, like where the camera was like on a string or something?
Sounds right.
So yeah, I'm almost positive it was before, because I remember speaking with you about it, and I didn't know at the time what I was looking for, but I knew that I had found it. Once we met and started working together.
Yeah, I think we were on the Skype for like 2 hours. I remember, I think, crying at some point. Like, it was very.
I don't know about that.
It was very like you left such a mark on me, not just in terms of creative visual storyteller, but just like as a human. I think I'd been through, like most of us, you make work for the work, but you sometimes, like, if the collaborator isn't a great fit, it can be almost, toxic to the soul. Mm-hmm. And so I had started to really try to, in determining what I wanted to make, really also be looking at, is this somebody I want to make this with? Because it is, when you make a film together, it's like going to war. Like, you have to be ready to take a bullet for somebody. And like, I just knew in that moment, like, I would do that and more for you.
All right. Yeah. I do remember us talking for a long time. And we got to it shortly after. I think you were in, it was like you were in Oakland a few weeks later. Yeah, and I remember feeling like I was in good hands. And I was excited about the style in which you were down to work, like you operating. And I think, like, we could talk about Fruitvale a little bit. Like, I remember some of the things we would discuss, and I knew it was really important to me to shoot film, just because, like, I was in film school at that time when it switched over, because we were getting a lot of access to cutting edge equipment between Robert Zemeckis being an alum and George Lucas being an alum, and we had this great relationship with Sony, where they were sending us the stuff that would eventually become the vintage, right? But when I first got in, the projects were shot on film, so I got to shoot a short called Locks on film. But then after that, everything was digital, and all the classes that came after my class, they never touched film.
Oh, wow.
And I knew that I liked it. Like, I knew that I loved the process of working with that film. I loved how that film looked more than the digital films I shot, even though I was better and my classmates were better. And, I remember us talking about it and how shooting film would cost us, a little bit more. We would not be able to shoot as many days, but it was also important to you. But then we were trying to figure out whether it would be 35 or 16. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that story?
It's one of the times that I feel like I was just so wrong. Like, I wanted to shoot 35, and I don't even entirely remember why, other than,
I remember.
Oh, okay.
You went to shoot 2 perf 35 because of shallow depth of field.
Right. That was why.
Yeah,
right.
you wanted a shallow depth of field.
Right. And I was throwing things like the fighter at you, and you were.
Oh yeah. But you threw Ratcatcher at me.
Yep. Yeah. I don't think Ratcatcher was 2 perf, but it was 35.
Yeah, but you were saying with the shallow depth of field, you can be with people more.
Mm-hmm.
So you weren't wrong, I don't think. You know what I'm saying? Like, for the executives and other folks. Rach, why don't you explain, like, what a shallow depth of field is and why it's shallower on 35 than on 16?
Well, now we experience it with digital too, with like 65 and larger sensors. But basically, the bigger the sensor is, the more you can essentially separate the foreground from the background. So at a 2.8 on 35, aperture T2.8 on 35, the background will be softer relative to the foreground than that same stop on 16. And
this was a time when depth of field really mattered, and folks probably take it for granted now. Like when you have your iPhone, for instance, or your whatever kind of smartphone you use, and you're taking pictures with. A lot of times these phones will have something called portrait mode, which does a digital version of what Rach was talking about, this blurring of the background. And we were debating, what kind of camera to use, what technique to use. and I was advocating for Super 16, which I hadn't shot Super 16 either. I'd only shot in standard 16.
Mhm.
And the films that I was referencing were most recently the two Aronofsky films that he had put out.
The wrestler versus the fighter.
It was a wrestler and also Black Swan, which was shot with the Arri 416. You know, this camera that I was like dying to get my hands on. And Rach, you were saying, yo, I do love that camera. You kept saying,
Yeah, it's still the best. I think it's the best camera ever made, and it's the most ergonomic. It's everything about it. I love that camera.
So I remember vividly, I was going back and forth, and then it was like we had a restaurant in Oakland, and you were like, yo, let's flip a coin. You know, like heads 35, tails 16, and I'm like, all right, cool. You know, let's put it all online. I flip it, and it lands heads. And you like, great. And then you see my face, my heart breaks. And you like, yo, I think I just saw your heart break. You was like, oh, I think we got to shoot 16. Like, I never seen that look on your face.
I remember this now. It's so true. It's so true.
I might be the first person in the history to like lose a coin toss and still get what I wanted.
But you were so right. I mean, you were so right. I can't imagine that movie any other way.
So let me ask, like, you got any memorable days? Like from Fruitvale, we shot 20 days. And I remember, was it like one of your first times in Oakland? Or has you been before? Because I remember the day you came, we scouted Highland Hospital. I remember that was where we met physically.
I think I'd been to Oakland before. I don't think I'd like dug in on Oakland the same way. I definitely fell in love with that city. The memorable days for me, I mean, so many, but the BART station and just, you know, we basically were given access to those trains from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m., which was, I forget why we couldn't shoot anything else on the same days.
We chose to rehearse for the other time so we could be more efficient in them 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I actually found, did I send you a picture of it? I found that laminate. Coog, coming from football, ran the set like football plays, and it was profound. And actually I've used that, like there've been a few times now, you know, in directing, whether it's a commercial or whatever, where I've done a similar system, but effectively we taped out the whole platform in a church parking lot, right?
We were actually in an elementary school parking lot, and it was a Catholic school, which is next to a church.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it was St. Liz in East Oakland, St. Elizabeth. And it was a school that Zinzi, one of our co-founders at Proximity, it was a school that she went to from kindergarten through 8th grade.
I mean, that's something that was so special about the film. I'm sure, you know, even more so for you, but it was like shooting at your aunt's, shooting at Zinzi's school, shooting at the, you know, the real hospital, the real morgue. Like there was so much, it was infused with so much, both reality of what had happened and the place, but also your experience growing up, like to actually bring something home and really embed the home into the work. It was palpable, and you certainly did a brilliant job of reminding us all, you know, why we were there and what we were making, and taping out the parking lot like the platform. And we figured out exactly where the camera needed to be, what lens we were going to put on it, where the grip, you know, was going to stand with the solid, where the gaffer was going to stand. We were mostly people holding lights in their hands, and really rehearsed the whole thing like theater, including the lighting design. That was just unique. Anytime you have a situation that's unique and you have to solve it in a unique way, then it really brought everybody together too. Like to have, you know, a limited time. And what did they say about how limits create art? Or, you know, I was just shooting a commercial a few weeks ago where I guess for the first time in a while, it was a lot of things that could only be done once. So it was, you know, cowboys bucking on horses and the horses could only go once, or Speed Week with cars going 400 miles an hour. And there was something so thrilling about it to like, it goes back to instinct, right? It's like, you get one crack at it.
I got goosebumps. She just talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's how those nights were. Like we had, you know, one crack at it with very limited time. You know, and obviously, I mean, we were even shooting on the platform where Oscar was killed. So you felt him in every moment.
Yeah.
That was memorable.
Yeah. I think you operated every shot in that movie except for the Steadicam. And it was probably why I knew you would always be a director. people are very comfortable around you. You know what I'm saying? Like it's you have a confidence, but also like a humility that I think enables people to like have that guard down. So it was great. Some of those scenes, Octavia's in the bed, and I think Mike and Miller in this bedroom in that first scene, and it's a lot of like not necessarily like intimacy in a way that we talk about it now, like with intimacy coordinators and these things that have developed, but that film had a lot of people in private moments, you know, and it was great, like having you right there with the camera, and we could get slim crew wise. You know, you get the lighting how you wanted it. All right, everybody out. You know what I'm saying? And it's and it's us in there making the thing. And I think that went a long way for all of the performances. You know, and I know all the actors left that movie loving you.
I mean, that is still the thing. Like as I move into directing, I guess operating is the hardest thing to give up. And sometimes, I mean, it may not be something I give up in terms of watching directors who like to be next to the camera versus directors who are away at Video Village. And, you know, when I shoot for directors who are away at Video Village, the first person that the actor looks at after a vulnerable moment, an intimate moment, is the operator, because the director is not standing right there. So especially when you're handheld, like attenuating, you know, the emotion and experience of a scene through operating and really trying to like dance with the performance, dance with the actor, dance with what they're giving you is, I just think it's such a critical part. And so it's like when I show up on a set and the operator hasn't even read the script, I'm just like, how can they dance in the same way? I don't know. There is something really, really magical about being that stripped down and just being in a small space with the actor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah, big time. Rach, how did you get here? We just talked about how we met.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you get to that moment?
I mean, for me, it started in photography, and I think it started because I was surrounded by a lot of, let's just call it like mortality. And so, you know, photo was a way to capture moments and to like attempt to like let them live on, you know? And so I started taking pictures really young. Like there are pictures that are like clearly a 5-year-old looking up and nothing's framed quite right. But it, you know, it was making memories, I guess.
Who put the camera in your hand, right?
My mom did. My mom had an Olympus. I think it was an OM1 or OM2. And she was like the family photographer, which is amazing, although it meant that there are not as many pictures of her as I would like. But yeah, and then I guess I took it from her neck and put it on mine and then never really looked back. I mean, I feel so incredibly fortunate to have kind of found a passion early and always knew to some extent what I wanted to do. I mean, it became a little muddy when I was choosing between photo and film.
Right.
But, you know, there are times where I probably could have gone to some pretty dark places. And I think that the saving grace was that I had this passion. Which, you know, a lot of people, whether it's a sport or a instrument or, you know, that having something that you love is the thing that really propels you forward, you know, despite all odds, I guess.
How did you choose between a moving image and a single?
It was so hard. And, you know, in retrospect, kind of like you said, you know, you didn't know what you were looking for, but you knew when you found it. Like in retrospect, I think the distinguishing difference that made me make the choice that I made, although I couldn't have distilled it down to this at the time, was looking at a life of effective isolation. The type of photography I was interested in was actually like conflict photography, or at least like photojournalism. But so that's not, you're not working with a crew, you're not lighting, it's a single person and the camera. And it was a life of solitude versus the filmmaking life, which is a collaborative life. And I love people as much as I have social anxiety at times and all these things, but like I'm a people person. I get so much from being with people, meeting new people, sharing stories, sharing experiences. And so I think that was really it. But also it was the movies that were transformative to me, like I would be sobbing hysterically. And as much as there are photos that made a huge impact and that I can kind of account in vivid detail, they never transported me the same way. And I think, there was something about the ability to really, build empathy through the work or move somebody. I found that film could do that in a way that photo couldn't quite get there.
It's amazing. And just give us like a Cliff's Notes, like professional and academic history for you, like how you wound up in Los Angeles making movies.
I went to school for photo and ended up tacking on a double major in film. And
what school?
I went to NYU.
NYU.
I went to Tisch for photo. And Tisch for photo was incredible because the discipline is, I think, 100 students in the entire 4 classes within a 35,000 student university. So you have you basically get the benefits of a small school within a major establishment. But yeah, I got out of school, and for a minute, it seemed like I was going to get to do the thing that I love. Like I did a documentary in the Ukraine, actually, and I did a documentary in Argentina, and I was traveling and I was shooting, and I was like, this is it. This is the dream. And then I think 9/11 happened, and basically like the world imploded, and so did venture capitalism, and like there was no work. Like all of these amazing artistic endeavors got sidelined, and I ended up in reality television. I was getting paid, and it was so close to what I loved, but it was almost the opposite of it. It wasn't at all the stories I wanted to be telling. And so I knew if I didn't do something drastic, I would get stuck there. And I applied to AFI because it was, to my mind, the gold standard for cinematography. It was also an incredible experience. I think mostly building a skill set, but also building the confidence, which I think, especially for a female DP who is by nature the exception to the rule, you really have to come out confident. And I think that's more than anything what I got out of AFI was like, I felt skilled. The thing is, back in a million years ago when we all went to school, it was kind of the way to make films because you needed a crew and you were shooting on film. And it was like, you couldn't make something that looked good on an iPhone or on a DSLR. And so the
technology didn't exist.
The technology didn't exist.
Yeah. Looking back on it, there was such a drop off from like what you would see in a movie or in a commercial or on television or a music video, and like what you could have access to. You know what I mean? Like with prosumer technology.
Yeah. But I came out of school with debt, a lot of debt, and ended up sort of back in reality TV because it was the only thing I knew how to do to pay off the debt. And that's the trap with film school. I would say of my classmates, maybe half, got out, and the other half came out with so much debt that they then ended up back as gaffers or ACs, or the thing that they were trying to get away from, reality television, ended up being the thing that they needed to pay down their debt
and to live.
So after AFI, I ended up on a show called The Hills, which is, what was interesting about it is that we were lighting every day. It was 2 years straight, basically, of lighting. So it actually was incredibly great practice. There was something else that actually came in really handy at that time, is that I was shooting with multiple cameras.
Right.
We would always shoot 2, sometimes 3 cameras, and learning how to position the cameras in a way that you could get, it's always going to be a compromise when you're not single camera, but like, how do you compromise the least? How do you get the closest eye lines with 2 cameras? How do you light so you can get the closest? So it actually, there was a lot that came from it that was useful to me. But I wasn't telling the stories I wanted to be telling. And it was breaking my heart a little bit. So that was a solid 2 years for me. And then once I got I think it was the private loans paid off and the public loans had a much better interest rate, I was like, I'm done. I can't. And that was that scary moment. I mean, people talk about putting, their life savings on maxing out every credit card to make their first film or whatever that is. For me, that was basically saying, I'm not going to do this thing anymore. And it was terrifying because it was the only thing that I had ever been paid for.
So what was the job that like got you on track?
Well, I mean, maybe Sound of My Voice, because it led me to you. Zal we were in school together.
At AFI.
So it actually, obviously paid itself off tenfold in that respect as well. But, we shot that movie not even on 5Ds because we couldn't keep the 5D in focus. We shot on 7Ds.
So the 5D, the depth of field was too shallow. Is that what was going on?
Because we were pulling our own focus. You couldn't even at the time really have a focus puller keep up with it. I had to trick the lens open by like putting my hand in front. And then when the lens opened all the way up, you'd lock it so that it could stay on one aperture. I think when we started shooting the movie, they only had 30 frames a second. And then like day 2, they had an update for 24. That's like how...
Yeah, the firmware updates.
And we were Frankensteining equipment together to be able to hold it kind of like a normal camera.
So it's not swinging all over the place.
I mean, that is the thing you learn. Like I look at what Sean Baker did with Tangerine on an iPhone. And like, if the story is good enough, it can transcend the medium. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or, the other thing you do is you can lean into the flaws. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
embrace it for what it is.
I remember watching Sound on My Voice, being impressed by some of the ways you guys used it, because it was so compact. Like it was shots where I was like, oh, I wonder how they did that. Oh, yeah, like, the camera was small.
Yeah.
And that part is, going back to Fruitvale, even us having that limited time, there was like a sense of desperation in the performances and the desperation in how he moved. And it ended up becoming like an advantage. You know what I'm saying? Like this crazy limitation that, we would sit and prep and say, yo, how are we going to do this? Ended up, maybe making the thing better. You know what I mean?
Well, and it was that DSLR time was actually this very unique, very short window before iPhones had gotten everywhere, where like we stole scenes on a Virgin America flight with the purple light because nobody knew that you could shoot video on these cameras.
Right.
So like that didn't last long, but for a year or two, you were holding up a still camera and shooting video and people didn't realize. And so there were just things you could get away with at the time.
So Sound on My Voice, Fruitvale, you start a working relationship with Rick Famuyiwa.
Mm-hmm.
You shoot Dope. I remember you shot Cake with Jennifer Aniston.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes Mudbound with D Reese. You guys form a working relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And around that time, I remember you start working with John Ridley. You start directing episodes of television.
Mm-hmm. In the same way that Elise clocked something that we had talked about and a year later put us together, I met John Ridley, I think, with Fruitvale at the Indie Spirits.
Yeah, because the year Fruitvale came out was the same year that 12 Years came out.
Yeah. And a conversation that we had was memorable enough to him that he altered the course of my life by calling me up and saying, I want you to direct this thing.
Wow.
You and Rick and everybody I'd ever shot for, but really you were championing me from the beginning, saying, you think like a director, you should be directing. I, at the time, was still, being headstrong and resistant about it. But when John called, I knew enough not to look a gift horse in the mouth. Like that, maybe that's the result of all the mortality and loss in my life. But like when you get an opportunity, you run towards it, not away from it. And so it was all from one conversation.
And I would check in with you and you would show me, episodes you directed of American Crime and shots you designed that you were really excited about. And then we got to work together again on Panther.
Wait, actually, one other thing about Panther. I mean, when you look at your life in retrospect, right? And this is, I know for all the younger listeners, when I couldn't do Creed with you because Wiley was due right in the middle of the shoot.
Oh, yeah.
We had been talking about it for ages. And then, you called me with the dates and I was like, oh, fuck. And you knew right away, you knew. But when I couldn't do Creed with you, I thought my career was done. As an independent cinematographer, like you pray that like any of your films will have some level of traction, that your director maybe gets a shot to make something a little bit bigger. And then you pray that they'll take you with them, which, a lot of directors don't have the tenacity or don't have the stronghold or whatever it is. And here you were fighting to take me with you on Creed. And then I couldn't do it because of Wiley. And I thought I was done.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's also a testament to you that you somehow convinced Marvel to hire me without the $40 million stepping ground. And basically I made this leap from, 10 or 15 million to whatever we had on Panther, a lot more than that.
What did you guys have on Mudbound?
9 million.
Damn, I never thought about that. But it wasn't like a difficult thing. They were right. You know what I'm saying? I
mean, I'm thankful every day that we met and that you put me up for all of it.
It's crazy shoot. It was nuts. I thought I was gonna get fired every day. You know what I mean?
I think we all did.
shortly after that, boom, you like, I'm about to maybe do this boxing movie. So talk about the fire inside. Talk about how you got it and how you made this transition and what it was like.
Well, I've been reading things for a long time looking for something that felt necessary. I mean, I can't think of a better term for it. Like, I just, as much as I love to be entertained, I do think, we have a responsibility to take this skill set that we have and use it for good, and that we have an opportunity to use filmmaking to kind of, say something. And so when I read Barry's script...
Barry Jenkins.
Sorry, yes. Barry Jenkins and Alicia Holmes, who were both our producers, and then Barry Jenkins was also the screenwriter, sent me this script for what was at the time Flint Strong and is now The Fire Inside. He had always wanted a woman to direct. He, I think, had me in mind. I don't know at what point, but they brought it to me, and it just made sense. I mean, first of all, I think Claressa is a badass, and I think it's crazy that nobody knows who she is. I mean, she's arguably the best female boxer ever, certainly one of the top.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just felt like her story deserved to be out in the world. And I was excited to do the thing I hadn't done, which is the post-production side, right? Like as a cinematographer, you're deeply embedded in prep, you're deeply embedded in the shoot. But then the second principal photography wraps, you're like, I hope this thing continues on the journey that we, set it off on together. You hope that the director doesn't, play too schmaltzy a score or make the 3.5 hour movie that nobody wants. Like, you have no control. You totally give this thing up and just hope that it gets raised well. And I think there was a part of me that was like, I'd love to actually like raise the child myself and like, choose some music myself and make some decisions in the post. And I tend to love things that I don't know already. Like, I think I was yearning to learn again.
It's a great feeling learning, right?
It really is. It really is. And so that part of it was exciting and not too terrifying. Working with actors in a way that I'd never actually worked with them was terrifying. I didn't go to film school for directing. I didn't take the directing courses or read the directing books. I was always camera, visual storytelling. And so I did do some of those things. I took a couple of classes. I read a couple books, but you really have to experience it for yourself.
What was it like? Talk to me about that first day on set.
So the first day on set was exhilarating and terrifying and all of the things. It also was a night scene with small children, just not how you should start any movie. But then, if you can survive that, then you're coasting for the rest of the film.
Yeah. Oof. That's how we started Panther and Fruitvale.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nice scene with kids.
I wonder what that is. Like, why that always ends up first.
I mean, it's nice to start with something crazy, challenging too, though. You know what I mean? Like, you get to dive right in. But let me ask you this: What was the first day of post like? Like, how did you find it? Did you find that you liked it, or did you find that it was not what you thought?
Well, I mean, this film was such a unique story, as you know. Like, we started the film pre-pandemic. We shot 2 days. They went incredibly well, which is probably why we still have a movie today. The world shut down. We spent 2 years, trying to get the movie back off the ground, managed to get it back off the ground, which is a miracle. But with some pretty major changes in the interim, one of our lead actors wasn't able to come back after the pandemic, just scheduling and some other reasons. And there were a lot of things that I now look back and I'm like, oh, things happen for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I ended up with the actor that I wanted for the role in the first place. I mean, the other actor did an incredible job and is also part of the reason why we still have a film. But now I have Brian Tyree Henry, who's just like, he's magic. But when we got re-greenlit, there was this idea that we could just hit the play button. And nobody had accounted for inflation. Crew rates had gone up. Materials had gone up. Locations had gotten expensive. And so the first thing I had to do to even be able to make the movie was cut the movie. This is before shooting. I had to cut every scene that wasn't holding the movie up just to be able to get the new green light.
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing is that the assembly cut was 1 hour and 51 minutes. The edit was the already trimmed version of the movie. Like, there was no fat left. I think some people have this like choose your own adventure, wealth of riches situation. And it's how do you pare down, 3.5 hours into 90 minutes. There's one very short scene on the cutting room floor, and otherwise the assembly cut basically is the movie.
It's what you shot.
Maybe one or two things got shifted in order, and then it was just about nuance. And I would say for the most part, I loved the process. Sitting in an edit room all day is really hard for me. By the end, I think we had a pull-up bar across the door jamb, and real changes. We would do push-ups, and I need to run around the block, and I just get restless. I have too much energy to sit in a room for many hours straight a day. So I learned that about myself. I'm not surprised by it, but where some directors I think like to sit with their editor through every moment and watch every iteration of every change. I think I quickly learned that for my own sanity, I was better off giving my editor notes, taking a walk, coming back, and learning that that's just a better way of working for me.
Yep.
And my editor, Harry Yoon, is the best. I really lucked out. He's a dream.
That's amazing. Are you ready for this next stage that nobody tells you about?
No. I mean, I'm terrified. No. To be honest, in all of the years that you and everybody else was saying I should direct, I think the thing holding me back the most was this next stage. I've never wanted to be front and center on a thing. The nice thing about being the DP is you do have a decent amount of power, but you're not in the spotlight. The red carpet terrifies me. Having to dress up terrifies me. Having to speak in public terrifies me. Having to answer things off the cuff terrifies me.
Yep.
And being the face of the thing terrifies me. In the past, I've been very fortunate that a lot of the movies that I shot, that I chose, did succeed and were well received. But there have been a few that didn't quite work. And even in those moments, oftentimes it was but the cinematography is, the saving grace in this movie, or but the cinematography really shines. And you can still dodge that bullet.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's you can't run away from any of it.
I always look at it for your own sanity and from experience, your actors are still gonna be front and center. That will be who your average moviegoer cares about and wants to hear from. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
People like us, you know what I'm saying? The cinephile who wants to know what was on the director's mind. You know what I'm saying? It is far fewer of us than we think, and that's the thing. I always joke, but your best director in the world is a D-list celebrity. Your average person ain't really tripping. You know what I'm saying? I try to remind myself of that. When I'm going in the press and these other things, if I'm on a red carpet, I'm usually on a red carpet next to a movie star. You know what I'm saying? And that's what everybody's gonna look at. Just be honest and present.
Yeah.
And when you feel like you got to get up and move, it's a bunch of press in there. Say, hey, I need 5 minutes to walk around. You know what I mean? Take it. You feel me? And then come back. But I think you're gonna do great. I
appreciate that. I think if there's 99 great reviews and one bad one, it's going to sting in a way that I'm not used to. And I don't have a particularly thick skin. I know I'm going to have to grow it. And that is part of what I am challenging myself to do, is you really just have to put yourself out there and know that, art is subjective. And not everyone is going to love the same piece of art. Yeah. But I definitely can see myself, this is my baby now. It was always my baby. I was always incredibly committed to and proud of the work that I did as a DP. But I've been raising this thing for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think everything's just going to take on a little more weight.
Yeah, no question. I was talking to a really dope artist friend of mine, a writer, who was saying they're about to release a new piece, and they were saying they're not reading the reviews. He said he's gonna put the work out, he's gonna put his work out, let that talk and kind of be done with it. That was powerful. So I always say try not to leave yourself open unnecessarily. You did great work. I've seen the film. You can trust in that you did your absolute best. And I think what you made is beautiful.
I feel cautiously optimistic also because it's a studio and they've tested it, and I have a sense of I think it's gonna really resonate for people, but for the people who doesn't, all that matters to me is that Claressa feels like we did justice to her and her journey, and Jason, I'm so excited. Jason's sort of the unsung hero, but he's still coaching kids at Burston for free while he works a cable job. And there's a movie about his life coming out on, 1,500, 2,000 screens.
Beautiful.
I'm excited for that.
Prox Recs. This is our proximity Recs section, Prox Recs, where we recommend something for listeners. It could be anything that inspires you as a creative. It could be a book, it could be a movie, a TV show, a podcast, a quote. It could be anything. You know, is there anything that you engaging with right now that's inspiring you, Rach, that you would recommend?
Yeah, I thought about it in relation to what I assumed we'd be talking about. And I read this book before I started the journey of directing, and I'm about to read it again before I put this baby out in the world. It's a book by Brene Brown called Daring Greatly, and it's about the power of vulnerability. And it starts with the Teddy Roosevelt quote: "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly."
Wow. That's beautiful.
So, yeah, make yourself vulnerable.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to recommend a book. That's a collection of short stories that Stephen King just dropped. It's called You Like It Darker. It's great to see like a best-selling author like King switch off into short stories and go back and forth. And some of these stories are like a couple pages long, and it's really sharp and fun. It's the last thing that I've read for pleasure. And pairing with that, it's a podcast called The King Cast. It's a couple of Stephen King fans who get other Stephen King fans to come on and talk to them about their favorite Stephen King books. So that's just like a little nerdy thing to recommend. Not as elevated as Rach, but I'll bring the dessert to the meal, you know what I'm saying?
Not true.
Thank you again, Rachel Morrison, director, cinematographer extraordinaire. Congratulations on finishing your film, The Fire Inside. Beautiful journey that I feel like I was courtside for all of the ups and downs. And honestly, I always knew this moment that's coming in a few days was going to come and it was going to be right. I'm so proud of you. And I'm so grateful to you for joining us on In Proximity.
Oh, man, thank you. It's been such an honor to watch you grow, too. I mean, we were babies together, and to see all the incredible things you've done and are continuing to do, and really just to be on this journey called life together is such an honor.
In Proximity is a production of Proximity Media. If you like the show, help us spread the word. Send a link to your friends and loved ones. Follow, rate, and review In Proximity on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. And follow us on social media. We're at Proximity Media on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. To learn more about us and read episode transcripts, head to proximitymedia.com. In Proximity executive producers are Ryan Coogler, Zinzi Coogler, Sevo Hanyan, and Paula Mardo. That's me. Our theme song and additional music is composed by Ludwig Göransson. Caitlin Plummer is our producer. Celine Mendiola is our associate producer. Our editors are Cedric Wilson and Judy Bell Kamangyan. Ken Nana is our sound designer and mix engineer. Isabella Miller is our production assistant. Alexandria Santana is our social media coordinator. Special thanks to all the other folks who helped make this show possible, the whole Proximity Media team, and to you for listening to In Proximity. That's a wrap on Season 2. Stay tuned. We'll be back again very soon.
I went to NYU.
NYU. And what was life like for you? You was riding around on your motorcycle and shit, right? It was like paint a picture. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. Paint a picture. I was riding around on a motorcycle in raver pants, which is like, it doesn't get any less safe than that, and a leather jacket and a lip ring. And I thought I was a badass. Rach, my wife, jokes that like, I think the world is my living room, but I've always been a little bit just kind of my own weird rule breaker.